All right.
Okay,
Welcome.
the queen is seated. Ergo, I call the April 6, 2026 Reston Community Center Board of Governors meeting to order. First item is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Say nay. Approval of the board actions, approval of the board minutes from December the 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Approval of December 1st board
Actions.
actions. Approval of the February 2nd, 2026 board minutes. Approval of the February 2nd, 2026 board actions.
Wait,
Wait,
just, I'm not seeing all this, Bill. I think are you sure you're on the right page?
Oh, this is, well,
Mine
he's
just
got,
right here.
he's got
Are you sure you're
April
on the right
6th. Oh, this is April 6th. Where's,
You need to be on page
where's
2.
May?
You need to be on page 2.
May 4th.
No,
Okay.
I've got a schedule for,
Yes, I didn't do it. That's okay. Okay. I'm here now.
Okay. Got it.
Did it disappear for you too?
all right, that looks different.
Jesus.
So I call
two
to
things,
order
right?
the meeting of May 4th,
Oh, there you go.
2026. So approval of the agenda, we did that. Approval of the April 6th, 2026 board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
These are minutes.
The minutes.
The minutes, there was one mistake. And there was something about less, the word less. You want more information on that?
I'm just wondering.
It's just less. Yes.
Utilizing RCC on wheels for the first time and donating less than formal
Less,
attire to the
yeah.
Reston YMCA. That's not it?
Yes, I can understand that. Donating less than formal attire.
So if we received donations that weren't quite formal enough for a formal event, and they were more sort of just like professional or office attire, we kept those back and donated them to the YMCA for a different purpose.
Would have been clearer without the Dan after left.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yes,
formal,
that's
that's
there, yeah.
formal, sure.
Okay,
Okay.
with
But
those,
it is
with
technically
those,
correct. What was written.
with those suggested modifications, do we have a motion to approve?
I think we already have the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
No, just discussion.
Oh, is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay, that motion carries. Approval of the April 6th board actions.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, that motion carries. Chair's remarks. Welcome. How many meetings have you attended in the past month? This is the most involved citizen in the face of the county. It's great.
That's a lot of meetings.
Yeah. Would you like to address us this evening?
No comments today.
Okay, all right. Well, you're always welcome to it. It's always great to see you. And I love it. I was at the budget hearings, and he came up and said hello because he was at the budget hearings too when we were doing testimony. That's great. And we have another visitor this evening as well. That's all I really have. So I will turn it over to Bev's moment.
Thank you, Mr. Bowie. It's like I don't waste time and I'm not slow. I just can't manage time. How come there are only 24 hours in a day? I need more time. This is a poem by Patricia Fleming, and she said, this poem is dedicated to all who have aged gracefully, whose skins may be a bit shriveled, but their souls are young and beautiful, and I'm so glad that they make this world so beautiful, so worth living in. You matter a lot, more than you think, and it's called I Still Matter. My looks are nothing special. My face reveals my age. My body shows some wear and tear, and my energy's not the same. Too often, my memory fails me, and I lose things all the time. One minute I know what I plan to do, and the next it may just slip my mind. I try hard to avoid my mirror. There are things I would rather not see. And even those times when I just catch a glimpse, I can no longer recognize me. The things I used to do with ease can now cause aches and pains, and the quality of the things I do will never be quite the same. I always compare my older self to those younger versions of me, and I know I'm wasting too much time missing who I used to be. But the thing that really makes me sad is despite what people see, underneath my tattered, worn-out shell, I'm still the same old me. My heart can still feel endless love, and at times it still can ache. My heart can fill with so much joy, and then it can suddenly break. My soul can still feel sympathy and longs for forgiveness and peace. And there are times its lights shine boldly through, and times when it longs for release. It's true, maybe now that I'm older, feeling lonely may be status quo, but it also has made me more willing to forgive and let past conflicts go. So maybe to some, I look ugly and old, a person who barely exists. I'm still quite aware of the beauty inside, and my value should not be dismissed. So although not as strong and no beauty, it's true, I'm still here, and I want so much to live, and I know that there's no one in this world quite like me, and no one who has more to give.
Thank you, Beth. That's perspective. That's what that is. RA should be so lucky as to have a Beth moment in one of their meetings. All right, we have introduced our visitors. We have gained our community input. And so we will go to Mr. Thomas for the report, the Finance Committee report on the meeting held earlier this evening.
You have the handouts in your packet. A few highlights. The total revenue is now at 100.8% of what was budgeted. So we are there. We have that. And part of that is thanks to, even though the tax revenue has not yet crept above about 98-point-something%, but the youth team stuff has been going gangbusters and is at over 50% more than what was budgeted. So that has been, that program that has been very innovative and new has been yielding some great results. But probably the most important thing is that we've got $179,000 in fee waivers that have been utilized across various areas. So that was really good. And then on the capital, it's about nothing out of the ordinary on the personnel. Obviously, we have a few folks that we've been taking a little bit longer to hire. Nothing big on operating. On the capital stuff, you will see some enhancements are underway in the lobbies, both here at Hunters Woods as well as in Lake Ann facility. New monitors going in, paint will be going in, stuff like that. So look for some of that sprucing up and modernizing to make things a little bit easier, including a photo of Lila since she is the eponymous center stage, and so that is that'll be lovely to see her visage every time I go to visit the stage. Anyone who was here for the meeting, anything I missed that you think should be brought up? We have one other thing that we will discuss as part of the new business which is about security deposits for rentals, but I will pause that until we get to new business.
You know what, why don't we do that now, and that way it can be continuous with Molly moving on. So can we do that now,
Sure.
Bria?
Okay, so if you scroll to page 17 and 18 in your packet, page 18, what I did was I pulled together comparables of our surrounding jurisdictions and what they charge for their security deposits. I included capacities of the spaces, the types of spaces. I wanted to make sure you had a good idea of capacities, so to give you an idea of the size of the room, what they're charging for the security deposits, and then there's another column where I have like a specific note. For example, Arlington County for small classrooms, they're not charging a security deposit, but they do flat out say that they will be charged an automatic $50 charge if there is any damages rendered. So I wanted to make sure you guys have all this information because to give you comparables and the suggested security deposits we're marking for the smaller meeting classrooms or the larger medium intermediate spaces, community room, Joanne Rose Gallery. You'll see that on page 17, highlighted in the yellow column. So these are the suggested prices, and then above that I marked out options 1, 2, and 3. In the discussion with the finance committee, we talked about a combination of options 1, 2, and 3, where we would hold the security deposit, and this is specific to our repeat renters and partners. So the groups that rent several times throughout the rental season, and it's all under one contract. So the security deposit would be held for the duration, and as they come to the end of the contracted season, it would be applied to their balance for their last payment. Above and beyond that, we would still have a credit card on file for them if additional damages were rendered that exceeded the amount they had on file with us.
Any questions?
Any questions, discussions, thoughts?
In looking over these, are we coming in, it looks like we're coming in lower than all the competition.
Generally speaking, yes. But I'm approaching this from the stance of we've never done this before.
Yeah.
So I think, especially if we're looking at like the smaller rooms coming in with a $25 or a $50 security deposit, 25's on the lower end, but 50's pretty much in line with a lot of the smaller spaces. So we wanted to start this process, and if we feel like moving forward that it's too low and we're having to always go back and charge people more, then I think we need to take a look at changing the prices. But to say kick it off, I think this is like an easy place to start.
The most important part is the fact that we will have a credit card on file for people that rent
Correct.
the facility, so that if there was any damage or anything else that we needed to charge them for, we would have a way to do that.
Basically like hotels
Yeah,
do all the time.
yeah, so that's
People
not,
are
I
used
don't
to
think
that.
that's,
Yeah.
I don't think that's onerous at all
Yeah.
and given consideration. So with that, is there a motion to move this forward for adoption?
Just one more question.
Yes, sir.
And that is, so for somebody who, just a one-time event, they
Yes.
small room, so a $25 to $50 deposit,
Correct.
would they just get it back at the end of the
Yeah.
day?
So what they'll do is at the end of their event, they would do a walkthrough of the space with a maintenance worker. And they would go through, there's a sheet that they should be doing, like a checkout sheet. So if they notice anything, it's getting marked on that sheet and the renter is signing. So this is not a surprise, you're getting charged for damages rendered. It would be a discussion in that moment. You know, we see that you burned the carpet. You know, an example of what we have
As a
seen.
practical matter,
Yes.
what'll happen when somebody just forgets and wanders off and disappears, and then you come back and discover it? Or will they automatically come just so they can get the deposit back?
I think that you're gonna have a lot more people that are wanting to go through the process, because we have
They don't
had
want to
that
hang out
happen.
any longer than
Right.
necessary. out.
Exactly. There's more accountability through this part of the process, yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
Anything else?
Yeah, so I move that we direct staff to move forward with this as discussed at the finance committee and agreed upon by everyone there in the room.
Any additional discussion?
Oh, we need a second.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay, that's adopted.
Great, thank you.
All right, we have the absolute honor this evening to host Molly Shannon, who is the FOIA officer for the county. And she's gonna give us some very, very important information on our responsibility as Board of Governor members. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for having me, and Lorna for helping get this set up. And I'm Molly Shannon, Countywide FOIA Officer. I've been back at Fairfax County for about 2 years. Before that, I was at Fairfax County Public Schools, their program manager for both FOIA and FERPA. And I've been doing FOIA in some capacity in the county for well over a decade now, hard to believe. So I love FOIA. I'm happy to spread the good word. And this is meant to supplement the recorded training. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at that training, go through it, and have some questions ready. So this is kind of informal. Feel free to ask questions as we go along here, but I'll try to be comprehensive in what I'm covering too, okay? All right, so what is the Virginia Freedom of Information Act? We all know it's state law. It was enacted July 1st of 1968. Each state has its own version of FOIA. Virginia FOIA has very strict response times. It favors open access, as most sunshine laws do. Open access to public records and public meetings. So there's two parts of FOIA. We'll be talking about public records and public access to meetings today. We fall under state FOIA, not federal FOIA. It's something we have to remind requesters of quite often, especially with the proliferation of the use of AI. Federal FOIA and state FOIA tend to get conflated. Any restrictions to access, we are to interpret them narrowly in favor of access. So any exemptions that we have to apply to records, we can only exempt or redact, black out the pieces of information that are explicitly exempt where privacy laws apply. And why do you all need to know about FOIA? Well, every employee, elected official, and BAC member is responsible for FOIA compliance. Any employee, elected official, BAC member can receive a FOIA request. You have to understand what the rules are as far as open meetings go, when you can discuss business among members, and when you can't discuss business among members. And also, you all have the right as Virginia residents. So you have the right to attend public meetings. You have the right to request records in Fairfax County or any other locality. For example, if you are doing benchmarking and looking to get information from other localities, you can use FOIA to gain access to their records and information. Also, there's civil penalties for violating, knowingly and willfully violating FOIA. They're up there on the screen. We do see it happening across Virginia and public meetings, especially since the pandemic, more so during the pandemic, closed meeting or public meeting violations. So we do see penalties for violations. And also in a county like Fairfax County where we have so many services, agencies, departments, people, individuals who are fulfilling FOIA requests, balancing transparency and privacy takes a team. So it really takes a good group effort to keep the reputation that we have here in Fairfax County. All right, moving on to the meat of the presentation, where we get a lot of questions, is what is a public record? The definition's up there on the screen. It's anything we prepare, create, receive, maintain, own in our possession in the transaction of public business. So for you all, it would be anything that relates to RCC business, okay? It needs to have a format, but location does not matter. It's about the content of the record. So if the record or document communication is on your personal computer, on your cell phone as a text message, on your social media, on a notepad, we're sitting here taking down notes during a meeting, those are public records. So it's not about the location, it's about the content of the record. One example we were talking about earlier were doodles. Would doodles be public records? It depends. It's about the content, right? So it could be in one of these RCC notebooks, smiley face or something. That's not a public record. It doesn't deal with RCC business. What might deal with RCC business as a doodle is, if you are drawing a landscape that you think would look good outside, and that's been discussed by the group, that can be RCC business, public record. Okay. Some of you who, I don't know if anybody uses social media to communicate. Okay, so when you're sending those communications to and from constituents or those who are receiving services from RCC, those are public records, so it's important to be mindful about how you're communicating, over text messages, instant messages, emails. Just be mindful that if it's something you wouldn't be comfortable seeing in a community blog, rethink how you're communicating. For example, if we have problematic individuals coming into community centers, and there's, not saying anybody's done this, but if there's gossip or talk about these individuals and it's on email or Teams messages or your text messages, that could be a public record, okay? So just be very mindful about how you're communicating. And be mindful of where you're storing records, because if we get a FOIA request for those communications and they're on your individual devices, applications, emails, you all will be responsible for pulling those records in response to a FOIA request. So again, be mindful about where you're putting your records, whether or not you can easily retrieve them, what the retention schedules are. Maybe you don't need to maintain those records for a long period of time, and they can be destroyed within the process of proper record destruction. So just be mindful about all that. Any questions about what is a public record? What is an example of what's something that is not a public record that you all can think of?
Smiley face.
Smiley face, just an air doodling smiley face. If the group gets together for a happy hour, please, going into public meeting stuff, but that invite for a happy hour, it's not related to RCC business. You are just going out to hang out, personally after things, or maybe, baby shower invite goes out. Just some examples I've seen across the time I've been working. Those aren't public records.
So,
Well, let the lawyer go first.
no,
Go ahead.
no, just so I make notes to myself so I don't forget everything here. Is that a public record?
That is a public record.
And what obligation do I have to deposit it here or to retrieve it? Usually I throw these
So,
things away on a
two-part-
routine basis, a few days after a meeting. Is that?
So two-part question is how long do you have to keep those notes? That's a records management question, and what I would say is if the group has record management questions, make a kind of categories or list of the type of records you all have and want to understand what type of record retention schedules apply. So then we can work with the records and archives team to figure out what retention schedules apply to those, so you all have the information you need on how long you need to retain those. But as far as FOIA goes, if those records exist, some people keep things for 5-10 years, in our notebooks. If you have the records and we receive a FOIA request, it's on, reach out to our FOIA point of contact. They reach out to the board members, say, hey, board members, we have a request that relates to the May 4th meeting. The requester wants any and all meeting notes that were written by board members. Then you would be responsible for turning those over, copies of them over.
If I still have them.
If you still have them, that's the key, is if you still have them and
Right.
understanding whether or not you should still have them.
So each of us used to get paper copies of all the materials for the meeting. Now, the organization retains those. Do we have to go back and find things that are just duplicates of what
No.
the agency?
The original record is the record of source. Copies of records, for example, when we process FOIA requests, we have copies, not necessarily physical copies, but maybe electronic copies of records. If we get a request for all FOIA requests, those copies of records are not responsive to a request for all FOIA requests. So those are copies of records. Don't need to produce every version or copy of a record. Going into versions though, draft versions of records, if you all have a policy that you're working on, drafting, and a requester asks for all versions or all drafts of a policy, we do have to produce all versions if they exist still. So be mindful about that. Drafts are different than copies of records, okay?
Also, with the iPads, we have our agenda on here. And sometimes I might make a note on here, just like at 7 o'clock, for me to remember to mention something at 7:20. If I then just hit undo, and it goes away, have I violated anything?
No, that likely falls underneath the no longer administratively useful retention schedule for the Library of Virginia. You use the note, you no longer need the note, you can delete the note. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions about text messages, social media, anything else? Preferably staying off
So-
text as much as possible as a group? Okay.
So we used to have paper, and maybe we will someday, we get a piece of paper that says, if the event's coming up, and we circle them, just so we remember it, let's go to those events. Is that a public record, separate from the original?
If somebody, yes, I mean, if you've made a note on it, if it's a meaningful note,
Underscore, don't forget, yeah, that's it.
yeah, I mean, if you made a personal reference note for yourself, it's still, yeah, it can still be considered a public record, but whether or not, I mean, somebody would have to have a really exact request. I doubt that it would ever get requested, but yes, if it exists, it could be considered a note meeting, a note that relates to the meeting. Any questions, anything else on this slide? All right, we talked a bit already about good records management. I am not the records management expert, but I always give their team a plug in the FOIA trainings because good records management means we have efficient FOIA responses. We're not assessing costs for things, for passing costs on to requesters for our bad records management. And it ensures that we turn over all the records that we should be turning over. We don't miss things. We do have agencies, especially larger, like land type agencies, who have an insane amount of records, both unstructured electronic records, and sometimes things get missed. I don't think you all will have to worry about that, but be mindful that messy records does make it a lot easier to miss producing a record in response to a FOIA request. And if that ever happens, if it does ever happen, we simply supplement the response and let the requester know additional records were located. All right, what to do if you receive a FOIA request? For example, if somebody walks up to, maybe you're outside after a meeting or at one of the front desks around here, and somebody walks up to you and they request a document or a record. That's considered a FOIA request, okay? Anybody can receive a FOIA request. They don't have to say FOIA to make it a FOIA request. They simply just have to request a document or a record, okay? We can receive FOIA requests in any form of communication, verbally, in person, over the phone. I've received a FOIA request over LinkedIn before, 2 times actually. Email, text messages, any form of communication we can receive a FOIA request, okay? If somebody from the community has your cell phone number, they text you, you may receive a FOIA request that way. If you do receive a FOIA request, a document request, what you need to do is document the request details. You don't need to turn over the record right away. Document the request details and contact information of the person requesting the record, and make sure it gets over to the FOIA office as soon as possible so we can get it coordinated. Oftentimes, community centers may receive requests for other agencies' records too. Okay. You can see up on the screen here, we say ASAP because we have a very short response time in Virginia FOIA. We only have 5 business days to respond to a FOIA request. Weekends and holidays don't count, so it gives us a little bit of wiggle room. If needed, we have 7 additional days to respond, so 12 business days total. Okay, so 5 initial working days. If we need additional time to search for, retrieve, produce records, we can invoke an additional 7 working days if needed. Okay. FOIA does allow us to assess costs as well. They have to be actual and reasonable, and most of our costs relate to the labor time spent searching for, retrieving, reviewing, and producing records in response to a FOIA request. But I don't recall the last one that you all even received, Lorna. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, so let's not talk about it.
But oftentimes with the community centers, the fees are minimal. The labor time is minimal, and the fees are waived. We do encourage agencies to waive costs that are $50 or less in the spirit of transparency, but also cost benefit. It takes us more to send out 30, 60, 90-day notices than it does, to assess than just waiving the costs. The other reason it's important to loop in your FOIA point of contact or the FOIA office is because all responses have to be made in writing. We can't deny a request over the phone or in person. We still do have that happen from time to time where a requester is denied verbally over the phone because it's a quote sensitive record. We do have to make the responses in writing, and the reason for that is because we have to cite the law that we're withholding under. We have to identify the law that we're withholding the records under.
Can I ask a question? You touched on it, but I'm not sure of the answer, so I want to ask it. If we get a request for another county agency or another organization altogether, not RCC, but maybe Reston-based, maybe RA or someone, what do we do with it?
You send it to the FOIA office. We have that happen with, our higher volume agencies, for example, Department of Public Safety Communications will receive police department requests. They'll either refer the requester to the police department or they'll send it to us and we'll coordinate it with the police department.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can, and that's the other thing. Any employee, BAC member, elected official can receive a FOIA request. That means you can receive a FOIA request for any agency in the county.
Okay.
So you could receive one for the Park Authority, Reston Community Center, other organizations that are in Reston too,
Right.
Police departments around here. Surveillance footage is another one that is kind of, we're seeing an uptick in FOIA requests for surveillance footage. So if you all ever receive requests for surveillance footage, make sure you get that over to us because DEMS, the Department of Emergency Management Services, is typically, in most cases, the record custodian of that information. Okay?
You receive a request for a public document or a document put out by somebody outside our organization. Do we have to do anything? In other words, if they ask for Donald Trump's latest executive order, which I could look up, but do I have to go to you and say, this is a waste of everybody's time? It seems implausible that if it's not a big record of the agency.
Well, we do have, for example, the police department receives requests for state and federal records that are not in their custody. And if we know of the agency, whether it's state or federal or another locality that has the record, and it's best practice to inform them, no, we're not the record custodian, we have no responsive records, here's the contact information of the office you need to submit the request to. So if you do get that, I know it's unlikely, but if you do.
Well, no, but that's just an extreme example.
Yeah.
But other things could come up.
If it's a public body, if it's a private entity, we can't do anything with that, of course. But if it's a request for another public body, whether it's local, state, or federal, yeah, take that information down and we'll draft a response letting them know we do not have
They want
responsive
something
records.
that Walter Alpine would have that we wouldn't, would it be appropriate just to say, go see Walter Alpine? I mean, that's the guy who's gonna have it, not us.
I would say take down the information because we handle board, so take down the information and send it to the FOIA office. Let them know you've received the request, because you're receiving a FOIA request at that moment, right? And any BAC member can receive a FOIA request. You can receive it for any office in the county, including other board, including board offices. So you can receive that request. It's our responsibility to take it in and not turn somebody away. It's really to remove barriers. It's about transparency, right? Removing barriers, ease of access, especially in a county, like I said, Fairfax County, where there's so many doors that requesters have to go through or can go through for services. Yeah, good question. So it might happen more than we think, right? Especially with board offices around here.
Can you speak more to the surveillance?
Yeah. So surveillance footage, like I said, it's one, we're seeing an uptick in FOIA requests for that information, for surveillance footage. And if you receive that request, send it to us. We coordinate with DEMS. Oftentimes, depending on the type of camera it is, we have the quasi-hidden dome cameras that are kind of blacked out and you can't see where the lenses are pointing. We have actual hidden cameras throughout the county, and that footage may be exempt from release under critical infrastructure, certain critical infrastructure public safety exemptions. If it's not a hidden camera, whether it's the blacked out dome cameras or another type of hidden camera, the footage would typically be released with the exception of community centers and rec centers. We have an exemption that can be used for when there's images of minors in the footage. That information would be exempt from release, among other things that might be exempt from release. So the costs related to producing surveillance footage can get pretty high too, because the labor time that it takes to review and redact frame by frame, especially minors' images, because they move fast. I had to do that one time. We had the incident quite a few rec centers here in the county with somebody, sexual predator going in. We waived those costs. That was a media outlet. That was multiple media outlets that were requesting that footage. We opted in that case to waive the costs in the spirit of transparency because of all the public interest related to that topic. So, yeah. Any other questions about records? All right.
Do we get paid for our labor cost if we go look?
So you don't get paid.
Why should you collect?
But we do. It goes back to the general fund. But we don't see it either. But we do ask, if the work is cumbersome or labor intensive, we do ask, labor time and the lowest hourly rate of the person capable of doing the work. You all are not county employees, so we will probably just figure out what the lowest, or most of you are not,
Why
administrative.
should they not pay for us?
And I have a bill rate. I mean,
His bill rate, I have a bill rate too.
It used to, it was pretty big.
So we would figure all that out if the time ever comes. All right, moving on, kind of following up the public records piece on now what information is releasable. A lot of times, less so here, but more time at schools, I would shoot a request off to be coordinated out to schools, and one of the common questions we would get is, this is sensitive information. Why do we have to release it? Why are they requesting it? Are they even allowed to request it? Yes, they are allowed to request it. All public records can be requested, but not all information is releasable. That's the key here. Yes, everything is FOIA-able, but it's not necessarily releasable, okay? Exemptions are privacy laws that allow us to withhold sensitive information. If we think about the individuals that we're dealing with in the county who are receiving services for us, I think that's the key, the most important thing to us is protecting constituents' information, those who are receiving services from us. There's 3 categories. May release, it's where we have perhaps a discretionary exemption that we can choose to withhold or choose to release the information. For example, personnel information, that's a discretionary exemption. And also the surveillance footage exemptions I was talking about earlier, that's discretionary as well. Okay, so we could choose not to protect minors' information, which we would never make that choice, but we do have some discretion with these exemptions. Then we have required to release, where there's no exemption that applies. Maybe it doesn't feel good to release the information or the record, but we have no exemption that we can use to withhold the information, so we have to release it. And then we have cannot release. That's where there might be certain penalties involved with releasing the information, particularly with tax information. There's certain penalties involved with releasing certain tax information. When we withhold records, they must be in writing. Responses must be in writing. We have to cite the exemption code we're withholding under. And we have to describe the subject matter and volume of records being withheld when we withhold records in their entirety. So that last part of it is only when we're withholding records in their entirety. So there's still some transparency measure to the code when we're withholding records. We're still kind of painting a picture of what records exist and why we're withholding the records in the county. Some common exemptions that we see, I've touched on a few of these already, is personnel information. So think resumes, things that you would typically see in a personnel file. That information that's information we typically protect from release. Attorney-client privilege communications, if you all ever have to consult with the attorneys, that information is protected. If they ever draft a memo for you, that information is protected. Closed meeting records, there are a whole host of reasons that you all can go into closed meeting, and if the records are discussed during closed meeting sessions, those records are exempt from release. Personal contact information, this one's probably one of the more common ones that you all would see if you ever get a request. Emails coming in from citizens, and information you all are taking down on room registration, things like that. Personal contact information would be exempt from release. Personal contact information includes phone numbers, email addresses, fax numbers, mailing addresses, home addresses. It does not include name. Okay, so that's one key takeaway there is personal contact information does not protect names typically, okay? It's a name of a minor, there may be another exemption that applies to that. Driver's license and account numbers, you all were just talking about potentially down the road, in the near future, collecting fees, I guess, for room reservations. If you all have credit card information on file, or if you're making copies of driver's license, those account numbers, bank account, routing numbers, driver's license numbers, those are all exempt from release. Okay. All right. And we've already talked about these already, but some key takeaways here on best practice. Again, FOIA is about the content of the record, not the location. If RCC business is being discussed or conducted, whether it's on a personal device, application, county device, or application, it's likely subject to FOIA, okay? Those are likely public records. Keep RCC-related records and communications organized, separate from personal records as much as possible. One thing we don't want to see is, if you all turn records over and we have to weed through a bunch of personal records, especially if it's like email chains. I think this is where we see it most common is people will start email chains about business and then weave in personal stuff. It's really hard to segregate that out if personal communications are mixed in with business communications. And this third bullet here is more so record retention. So if you all need a plan in place for record succession, when you all leave the governing board, let me know. I can connect you with the records and archives team so they can talk to you guys about having a plan and process in place. But do have a plan and process in place for when you leave to turn over any records that you all still have in your possession that relate to RCC business.
But not old copies of things that they had.
Yeah, old copies, you can hold on to those copies.
Or throw them away.
Or throw them away, shred them or throw them away. And then be mindful that we talked about this earlier too, be mindful that your correspondence and records may be made public if it deals with Fairfax County or RCC business, so be thoughtful about your communications. It's something you would not want to see out there on a community blog or the Washington Post. Okay, now we're going to talk about public meetings. You all know what a public meeting is. It's an assemblage of 3 or more members of a public body, of the same public body. So, if we have a member from the Park Authority, RCC, and a Board of Supervisors office who are all going out to lunch together, they're not on the same board together, that's not a public body. Okay? Not a public body. Engaged in the discussion or transaction of public business. Okay, so we have to have 3 or more members together from a public body, and there has to be a discussion of public business to make that a public meeting. Meetings can inadvertently occur electronically over email. They can inadvertently happen. I don't know if you all use Google Docs. Do you all use Google Docs? Okay. We've had some VACs that might be on a shared document and making updates at the same time, and therefore chatting and communicating, and inadvertently may have a public meeting that way. So be mindful of that if that's something you all ever look at implementing. Avoid reply alls and group texts as a group by email, and avoid group text as well. We talked about that earlier. It sounds like that's not something you all engage in, so that's good. And avoid gatherings of more than 2 members. That includes before or after meetings too. Be mindful that if the meeting has not been open to the public yet and you all are discussing RCC business or afterwards discussing RCC business, you may be inadvertently having a public meeting. So be very mindful that keep things light, personal, and not related to RCC business before or after the meeting opens. If 3 or more members are present and the gathering hasn't been noticed, for example, if you guys go to like maybe a park authority event, 3 or more of you go and you sit down beside each other at the event. Keep quiet about RCC business. If RCC business comes up, try to redirect the conversation out of that RCC business, or leave and separate from each other if you can't contain yourself from talking about RCC business. Any questions about this slide? Okay.
We chuckle because, I mean, how often is it that we have a table at an event and it's literally the RCC table at the event? But, you know, talk about other things or don't have more than 2 board members.
Yeah,
But then it would have to get everybody,
But you
because
can talk
everybody
about
has
it.
the table with.
yeah, and that's kind of the nice thing. You can go to these events and not talk about RCC business and just enjoy each other's company. So it's kind of pushes you guys to, you know, just enjoy each other's company. Don't talk about RCC business. And that's the key. There is the discussion of public business, RCC business. Okay.
But we can talk about, we don't like the supervisors or anything else, that's okay.
Yeah, now
As long
because
as
if
you
you
got-
don't like the if we go
Sounds
into
related to RCC business.
No, it's
if you
not.
go if you go into we don't like the board of supervisors being recorded. The board of supervisors because they didn't approve something, you know, then
But the
you
RCC, oh,
yeah,
the RCC.
Right.
yeah, keep it general.
We don't
Yeah, but you don't like
taxes
his
or whatever.
tie.
Huh?
Yes, yeah,
What's that?
But you don't like his tie.
that's
Yeah,
not
that's
RCC
a good
business.
example.
Okay. What is not a public meeting? Social gathering, social gathering, any other gathering where no discussion or transaction of RCC business takes place. Public forum, candidate appearance, or debate with no discussion or transaction of public business. You can really see, beating the horse or whatever the saying is here. It's the transaction, discussion of public business that makes it a public meeting. Meeting of employees, it's a question we get from staff sometimes. Is a meeting of just regular employees a public meeting? No, they're not a public body. It's just a regular staff meeting. All right, electronic meetings. Do you all ever call electronic meetings? Okay. Electronic meetings can happen. We have the emergency meetings where a state of emergency is declared by the governor. Some key takeaways here is it must be impractical or unsafe to gather in a physical forum. There are times where an state of emergency might be declared and it gets extended well beyond where it's impractically safe. You know, it's safe when it's safe to convene, even if there's still an emergency, a state of an emergency issued by the governor. We should still convene, in person if we can, if it's safe. And the meeting must be necessary. Okay. Remote participation, have a policy in place, and know that you can opt for remote participation if there's a medical condition or disability, or for yourself or if a family member. You have unlimited instances of remote participation there. For personal matters, it's less, limited to twice per year or 25% of the meetings. Any questions on this? Pretty straightforward. All right, and just a few things for meeting notices. This is just good to be aware of. As you all have a staff liaison who takes care of this. The notice shall be posted at least 3 working days prior to the meeting. The key here is days prior to the meeting day does not count as notice. We still have this happen, maybe 2 to 3 times a year where a meeting gets, whoever is scheduling the meeting counts the meeting day as the meeting notice within those 3 days, and they have to cancel or reschedule the meeting because they only allow 2 days notice.
It was a Friday meeting and they gave notice on Wednesday.
Right. And then the notice has to include the date, time, location, and remote participation. If required, if changes to the posted details are needed, we have to allow 3 days notice to the public for any changes. Okay. And we have three places that notice has to be posted: on official public government website, RCC website, in a prominent public location at which notices are regularly posted, and at the Office of Clerk Services, or in the case of a public body that has no clerk, at the Office of the Chief Administrator. So you all, I'm sure, have three places you all are posting, right?
But lots.
All right, public meeting materials. Minutes of the meetings must be taken, preserved, and posted online 7 working days after they are approved. There's no requirement on when they need to be approved. It's just that after they are approved, they have to be posted online 7 days after the approval. Bless you. And there are additional requirements for electronic meetings. You all don't need to worry about that because you all don't have electronic meetings. The citations are there if you all ever do. The agenda and agenda packets must be made available for public inspection. At the same time, the documents are furnished to members of the public body. This is changing this year, and we will, it just passed maybe 2 weeks ago, so we'll be working on BAC staff liaisons on training on how to get things posted online. Okay.
That represents the change?
No, this does not represent the change because the change is not effective yet.
So what will it be changing to?
The agenda and agenda packets, I have to get the exact language. It changed a few times.
But approximately, what's the intent?
The intent is, I think it goes to the meeting materials.
It's like there's more time that you have getting the meeting materials out.
It's immediate. It has to be posted to the website. They're gonna have to be posted to the website.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you can't keep editing.
Say that again?
You can't edit the documents less than 3 days before you have the meeting left to operate.
Yeah. So how you're gonna have to, and then it's gonna impact votes. If something's added onto the agenda, after a certain period, votes can't take place on that agenda item. But again, we'll be pushing out some training and information for you all. That will be effective July 1st, so we have a little bit of time. All right, closed session. Do you all go into closed session often?
Rarely, but we do.
Yeah, so when we go into closed session, there's some transparency requirements too. When you go into closed session, there has to be a motion that identifies the subject matter for the closed meeting, specifically states what the matter is, and makes specific reference to the applicable exemption from the open meetings requirements. After closed session, there's a cleansing motion. So when you come out, you have to make a promise to the citizens that you only discuss business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion were heard and discussed or considered. Okay? So you can't go beyond what is mentioned in that closed session motion when you're in closed session. All right, and then we've got some county-wide FOIA resources. Some of these are internal to the county. Most of them are public-facing. The first is a countywide FOIA policy. It's short, easy to read. It is going to get an update in the next year. Link to the countywide FOIA office. Our public-facing page is there. Office of the County Attorney. John Burton is our contact now. We had a recent changeover. Corinne Lockett is no longer with the county. It's now John Burton, who's our county attorney contact. Records and Archives. Encourage you all to check out their website. Lorna, there is a really good short training on records management that the team might be interested in watching. I think it's maybe a 10-minute video that can be watched for records management. And then FOIA points of contact throughout the county. There's a list that's hyperlinked there. But if you guys ever receive a FOIA request for anything, or record request, it's either for RCC or anybody else, just direct it to the FOIA office. And then the FOIA resources page for employees. Great resources there, links to the FOIA Council page, among other internal and external information for employees. We We have our contact information here. There's 3 in my office, myself, Sheena Lynch, the FOIA analyst, and Lindsay Ramos, the FOIA assistant. But if you email FOIA@fairfaxcounty.gov, that goes to all 3 of us, and then that just ensures somebody quickly responds. But email me to molly.shannon@fairfaxcounty.gov. We have our county attorney's office and the clerk services information there for you all too. All right, well, that closes out the FOIA briefing. Were there any questions beyond what we already talked about? Okay.
All good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Cleanse in
much,
motion,
Molly.
everybody, cleanse in motion. Don't come out.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you.
All right. Board matters. Shane? Do you have any board matters?
I do not.
Paul?
I went to some concert in the center stage, I forgot what it was.
Oh, we had, did we have Cornerstone College?
Yeah.
Last one?
Oh, yeah, Cornerstone's got everyone went. But actually, it's something that like no one else went to. Yeah, The Witch.
The Witch.
Yeah, Seasons of the Witch. And I'm still JV girls soccer coach at South Lake, so a lot of soccer.
Yep.
I went to the Valor Awards from the county. RCC has a bowling team, if you all want to join us. And I went and I bowled a 154.
Wow.
Yes.
Killer.
The Founder's Day, I was part of a panel from the trust. Carol Bradley, Linda Ahart, and I. Because we're 3 old broads who came here many moons ago, and they wanted to know what was Reston like then. And then Seasons of the Witch was the other. Yes.
William?
Is it Founder's Day, which I know goes by a different name now, but it'll always be Founder's Day to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And me too.
Me too.
So,
Me too.
that's the main one I can remember offhand.
All right, BB, you're under pressure. Shane, 76ers are going to tip off
I know, I'm sorry, yeah, tip off it already at 8
It's all right,
o'clock.
it's all right.
in 9 minutes.
All right,
No
lots of facilities, things are going on. As you walk through the building, the lobby display project is happening. Lots of behind the scene facilities, projects are happening on the technical front. Under the equity pillar, we did the Seasons of the Witch, and we also partnered with the seniors at the Fellowship House to bring more of the patrons from next door to enjoy some of Lala Gordon performances. And Community Connections, we hosted a ceramics master by the name of Andrew Costo as a partnership with Tefra, and that was extremely well received by our arts community. And lots happening with it. I think we're in the 3rd weekend of the Western Community Players. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Their productions are very popular. Programs and services, we have all of the lifeguard classes has been doing phenomenally. We're now like the 2nd highest trainer for lifeguards in the region. And if you're attending tomorrow's board meeting, you will get to hear more about that. It's extremely distracting. All of our youth programs are just gangbuster. The parents' night out, there seems to be a lot more young families in our area, and they're taking full advantage of leaving their kids and having a night out. So we're adding more sessions much faster than we can, we can say, sign up and go on a date. Communications, as Lorna she's been shepherding the lobby design project. Compliant with the website accessibility study, which we got the great news that it's been extended for a year, so we have one more year to bring our website into compliance. Summer program just opened on Friday, May 1st, and I can't wait to see what the numbers look like. As you can see, welcome Mark, thank you for, he will be starting this month, taking over for the videography of our board meetings. In the stewardship and accreditation, we've hired new YAT staff. Finance is preparing for year-end closing, kicking into high gears, and we are streamlining our NFT, what is it stand for?
Notice forbidding trespass.
Notice of forbidden trespass
Notice
system.
forbidding trespass.
And then streamlining a lot of our incident reporting, internal operations process. And then all the things that I attended, including a couple of housing community development meetings. Supervisor Alcorn called RCC and RA to discuss about Vantage Hill neighborhood relapse mitigation items. Mainly that, we may be called on to be a cooling center this summer while they are, going through the relapse obsolescence and replacement process. Fairfax County Valor Awards was extremely meaningful. And cornerstones of our community gala with Carrie Wilson's retirement and celebrate festival. That's all for me.
All right. Is there any additional ongoing business? Yes.
Well, actually, no, just the one thing that I don't think Bill was here when Phoebe mentioned this, in the board packet at the very bottom, you'll see some pages sort of showing all of the plaudits being given to some RCC staff, so those are worth looking through. It's very nice to have.
They're a short, quick read, and they highlight a lot of our outstanding staff here on the RCC team.
Any new business? All right. List of events there. Leadership Fairfax Breakfast, the Arts Festival, of course, Happy Hour, and Memorial Day will be coming up. So hopefully we will see you at one of these coming events. The next one is tomorrow morning at 9:30 at the Board of Supervisors meeting. And congratulations to staff for getting that together, and congratulations to all of the honorees for outstanding achievements. And with that,
Don't forget Mother's Day.
and Mother's Day. And with that, to all of you mothers, we are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.